Good afternoon. I'm Barbara Hewlett, and I'd like to share with you my presentation on improving the lives of people with dementia and their caregivers. Thank you for joining today. We know dementia is a growing crisis. 5.8 million Americans have dementia, and that number is expected to double by 2050. 1 in 10 Americans over the age of 65 have dementia. And 70% of all caregiving is done by volunteer caregivers with no resources or pay. These tend to be the family caregivers and the loved ones of those with dementia. We have traditional treatments out there. They tend to be in medication, which can slow the progression of dementia. Behavioral management, which we can deal with the disruptive behaviors, but often with medication or sometimes even restraints. And then there's custodial care, taking care of the safety and just providing shelter and food for those with dementia. But we want something more for our loved ones. We want something more humane. We miss them. We want that person-centered care. We can try pet therapy that is becoming very, very popular and successful, or dementia-based technology, such as our smart technology that we have, supportive environments based on environmental design that can modify place for those with dementia. And then we have sensory stimulation, physical activity, and even social interaction that can improve the quality of life with those with dementia. We have providers that offer innovative care for those with dementia, such as the Eden Alternative, which focuses on the whole person and the family relationship. We have the Greenhouse Project, was an environmental intervention and project that developed a small house, one that people are more familiar with and comfortable with. And then we have Plaintree, that is a human-centered approach that offers choice and dignity. For today, we're going to talk about memory loss because dementia is a progressive brain disorder with memory loss and cognitive decline. And this is important because this is the very areas we're trying to communicate with our loved ones. We have the semantic memory, which is that the big picture, the abstract knowledge, things we've learned in school, those facts, who's president, what day is it today, how to use a calendar and the clock, that data-driven material. And it also, this part of the schematic brain is part of our filters and our judgment that we make decisions on every day, the vocabulary and language. This is most damaged by the dementia diseases. But we also have the episodic memory. This is our long-term memory. It's about our life's experience, very, very personal. It's emotional and it's experiential. Oops. Let's go back one here. One more. Semantic memory. This is our, as I said, our short-term memory that is severely impaired with dementia. It is very difficult to remember facts, and the filters that we use to make our good judgments and behaviors are lost. Our understanding of concepts and our ability to solve problems is lost. But our episodic memory is still very available to us. It's those personal experiences, the remembrance attached to emotion, those good times from being a kid, those strong emotions, our first kiss, our date, our time in college. These are often live with us for a very long time because they're connected to our memories and our emotional memories. And this is key because emotions form the link to that part of our memory because we remember those emotionally charged events far more than we do neutral events. Like we might remember a car accident that we were in and the scar on our hand from that car accident, but can't remember a doctor's appointment we had only this morning. So it's the emotional charge linked to that memory that forms the link to that part, that deep-seated part of our memory. So this is very exciting because the emotion forms a portal for reaching those with dementia, which has long been thought inaccessible, that we couldn't get there because often we see people with dementia acting out in disruptive behavior, and we think they've lost their ability to control emotions, and that's part of the emotional brain. But that's part of the filters and the somatic part of the brain. And yet the emotional part of the brain is still a very much active and a great source to reaching people with dementia. Let me use this little diagram to help explain, because we have the two parts of the brain here, this semantic memory and our episodic memory, our emotion. And when we approach people with dementia, we often do it from where our comfort level, how we communicate through our cognitive skills. We can ask a question, a simple question like, how is your daughter? Very straightforward, easy question, except for the person with dementia may have forgotten they have a daughter. They don't understand your question. Oh my goodness, was I supposed to pick up my daughter for school? Has harm come to my daughter? I don't know, and can relate to a state of agitation and eventually disruptive behavior. But if we don't use that cognitive approach and relate to the person and communicate to them with an intervention, an emotional intervention, such as a photograph of their daughter. Oh, your daughter looks so beautiful and happy here. You must be very proud of her. This intervention is non-cognitive, and it creates pleasure and often engagement. So our emotions play a really important role here, to reaching our loved ones with dementia, and they can be interventions. They tend to fall into three categories: that of sensory interventions, nature-based interventions, and reminiscence, as a therapy to reaching those. But emotions are the significant part here, because they help strengthen those memory connections and are key to remembrance. They are both positive and negative, and we have to remember that emotions that are negative will trigger negative behavior and stress, and sometimes disruptive behavior, where positive emotions can trigger engagement and pleasure. Because emotions are biased, and we're more likely to be triggered by information that is consistent with that emotion. Our senses play a big role here, because to use our senses or to engage in our senses, it's a non-cognitive experience. We smell, we see, we hear without engaging our brains and thinking about it. However, we do need cognition to make sense of what we see, hear, and smell. For example, we may see an apple, and it's maybe a beautiful red apple, but we need our brains, our cognition brains, to help us make sense. This is an apple that I can eat, and it tastes good, and I like it. This requires cognition. However, our senses are not just merely these passive receptors, except in the state of flow. It is a temporary state where we're reacting to a situation, emotionally reacting to a situation as it unfolds. It's what we call a flow state. And this is what we're looking to achieve with those with dementia. And they can be achieved through emotional engagement. Some examples are music, which there's a lot of research how music can engage the emotions and cause pleasure. Likewise with art, engaging in the arts, and not just painting, but dance and music and rhyming. Nature is also an emotional link to the episodic memory, as well as pets and our senses and stories and storytelling and laughter, which is so contagious that we don't even need to know what's funny to engage in laughter. Nature also provides a really strong link to that episodic memory because nature stimulates the senses. It helps us smell and see and live and react to what we're experiencing. That improves memory, encoding the emotion, and helps retrieve memories and triggers happy memories of times in nature. It increases our levels of dopamine without even any cognition, and it even increases focus. We can use interventions. Some examples might be walks in nature, touching plants, observing flowers, visiting parks, act activities in the garden, picking a flower, smelling a flower, petting a pet, throwing a stick, eating outside and picnics, gardening, getting your hands in the soil, and observing birds at the bird feeder. All of these can evoke emotion, which can be part of the flow and connection with those with dementia. Reminiscence therapy is a great resource that impacts dementia. The very act of recalling past experiences and sharing those with dementia is very positive and creates a great deal of pleasure. It helps them stay connected to their world, their family, and their friends, and even helps them preserve their own identity as a mom, as a cook, or a caregiver themselves. It improves their own social skills and certainly enhances communication and engagement. Some examples of reminiscent interventions are props. Props are very important for retelling these stories. Photo albums, storytelling, memory books, picture books, video diaries, and certainly the creative arts where you can actually engage in the arts and music and dance, tap your feet, sing the song, all provide that emotional link that can help create pleasure and engage with your loved one. So let's review. There's memory loss for those with dementia in both the semantic and the episodic memory. However, remember that the semantic, the short-term memory is significantly more disruptive than that of the episodic. Especially remember, those filters are coming because they've lost their judgment on how to behave. The emotion, or the episodic memory, on the other hand, is linked to very, very personal experiences with life and life's event. And by using interventions, effective interventions that target the episodic memory, it can link the senses, the sensory memory with the emotion and the experience, causing a great deal of improvement in the quality of life for those with dementia. So in conclusion, remember, there is hope. We can focus on those with dementia and their caregivers by engaging and focusing on the episodic memory. We engage on the emotional side of the brain, and we can tap into those senses, nature, and reminiscence therapy to engage our loved ones with these very effective interventions. Thank you for your attention, and I'd like to share with you one last thing, that the content for this lecture is based on my new book, Taming the Chaos of Dementia, and it is available from Barnes and Noble and Amazon as pre-order right now, and will be on the shelves on November 6th. So thank you for your attention, and I look forward to your questions.